Hi, I'm Laura. I was diagnosed with autism in my 40s. I think us late diagnosed folks decide to pursue a diagnosis because something has finally clicked. This is the story of how I discovered that I was neurodivergent. It all starts with my daughter. When she was a baby, we were very isolated. We didn't have any other infants around to compare her to, so we had no reference for normal. She had a minor speech delay, but nothing of concern. We began to realize that something was different when she went to preschool, and we were accused of spoiling her because she would cry whenever she was told no. I mean, obviously, we must be spoiling her if she cries when she doesn't get what she wants, right? But I was just floored because we told her no all the time. We told her no whenever the occasion called for it, which you can imagine with a toddler was quite often. And yeah, she cried a lot. I just thought that was normal. I thought kids cried. And as it turns out, my kid cried a lot more than the other kids. When she was 5, we were called into the school during her first week of kindergarten because she'd had a meltdown during a fire drill. Apparently, someone had stood too close to her and she had been pushed, or she pushed them, or I'm not quite sure, but she had a meltdown. And we were chastised for her behavior as parents. Apparently, it was all our fault. Her dad and I knew her well enough to know that she doesn't like being touched. She doesn't like her physical space being entered too closely by strangers. She doesn't react well to changes in plans without setting expectations, and has trouble with emotional regulation. And we asked, did anyone tell her what a fire drill was? Did anyone explain to her what would be expected during a fire drill? Apparently not. But we were told it was our fault and that our kid was a problem and we were bad parents. COVID hit during her first year of school and we were further isolated. It wasn't until she could start playing with other kids again that we really started to notice there were some other things that seemed a bit off. The way she interacted with children and the way that she played with them was very different than the way that other kids were playing with each other. And it was clear that the other kids didn't understand her or why she was doing what she was doing, and it just looked wrong. And we already knew that she was different, but this is about the time we decided we needed to get her a diagnosis so that she could get the accommodations that would help her succeed, and maybe as parents we could be offered a tiny bit more understanding. We started the process, but there was a long wait between referrals and assessment, and summer was coming up. So this is when we made a really big mistake, and we enrolled her in summer camp. On the first day of camp, we were called and told that she was being kicked out of camp. She was no longer welcome because she had struck another child. It turns out she had pushed a kid when they had gotten in her face and then actually physically taken something from her that she was holding. I don't know about you, but I feel like that is an appropriate reaction for a 6-year-old, but apparently this camp had a non-violence policy for 6-year-olds. We tried to explain that she was in the process of getting a autism diagnosis, and they became a tiny bit more understanding. They were willing to let her stay if we paid for a one-on-one counselor for an additional $400 for the week. But I felt like a total failure as a parent. We knew this was a new place with no known routines, and we knew that she was going to struggle. It was devastating. Later that year, we finally got her diagnosis, ASD level 1, and it was such a relief. We could finally say, look, our kid is not a bad kid. She just needs a little bit of understanding. And as parents, we could say, hey, we're not bad parents. We're trying to raise a smart, curious, beautiful, highly emotional little girl in a world that is just not designed for the way her brain works and how big her emotions are. And she doesn't quite fit into what society thinks is normal. You would think at this point that I would have turned the lens on myself, but not yet. By the time of her diagnosis, her dad and I had already separated. And it was a little while later that I was out on one of my first dates with my new partner when I told him this story. And he looked at me and he said, "Laura, have you ever thought that you might be neurodivergent?" I swear I could hear glass shattering over my head. I had literally never thought of that until that exact moment, but it explained so much about my life. You would think, after being called weird my whole life, having trouble making friends, not understanding social norms and friendship dynamics, copying others' behavior to fit in, getting in trouble for my direct style of communication, and my own issues with emotional regulation, that I might have come to that conclusion on my own. But there was no word for me when I was a kid. The word neurodivergent didn't exist yet. There was a word for my brother, and that was ADD, which is what they called ADHD in the 80s. But I was the good kid. I could sit still. I got good grades. I was just weird. I was just weird, and I was bullied for being weird until late in my teens. In 2025, I started my own diagnostic journey. And now I know my word is autistic. And while I don't like the idea of having a label that most of the world believes is a disability, it is helping me frame the experiences of my life through a new lens and informing my views of myself with more accurate information. I'm learning that there's a reason I'm different. And it's not because I'm broken. And it's not just because I'm weird. It's because I'm neurodivergent. It's because I'm actually autistic. And guess what? It's not my fault. Being weird isn't my fault. Getting laid off isn't my fault. Struggling as a parent isn't my fault. Struggling with friendships isn't my fault. It's definitely a process trying to understand all of the different nuances about me that have been affected by the way my brain works over time. So many things that I thought were normal that are not normal. The way that I experience life isn't the way that other people experience life. I mean, nothing has ever seemed very real to me, which is one of the reasons I wanted to start making videos. Because now I can see that I'm here, and that you can see that I'm here, and I actually exist. And I'm going through this process of figuring out what it all means. But that was it. That was the moment. I want to thank my daughter for helping me find myself. What was your moment? When did you realize that something was a little bit different? Thanks for watching. I hope you have a regular day.